Imagine what would have happened if the economic nightmare of 1929 had never occurred. Would America have become a world hegemon sooner? Would World War II have completely altered the course of history? The Great Depression of 1929 was not just an economic event. It was an earthquake that shook every social foundation. In reality, the Wall Street crash sparked a decade of devastating recession, plunging millions into despair. But what if that scenario hadn't happened? If prosperity continued, would the world have followed a different path? On October 24, 1929, Black Thursday, Wall Street witnessed a terrifying sell-off. This escalated into Black Tuesday on October 29th, when millions of shares were dumped. Market value evaporated. Billions of dollars vanished in just a few short days. This event exposed deep weaknesses in the global financial and economic system. From overproduction and mounting debt to protectionist policies and a lack of banking oversight. The lack of banking oversight contributed to the deepening crisis. It created a wave of panic, bank failures, and widespread unemployment across America. Then quickly spread globally, ushering in a long decade of suffering and instability. Millions were unemployed. Poverty and instability spread across continents. Without the Great Depression, the U.S. economy would have continued to grow robustly and ceaselessly. Liberal economic policies with less intervention would have been maintained, fostering business development. If the global economy had been more stable, it would have avoided the wave of extremism in Europe and Asia. Reduced economic pressure would have weakened the appeal of aggressive, expansionist policies. In this hypothetical timeline, where Black Thursday never happened, hope would have spread. Instead of collapsing, financial markets would have only experienced gentle, cyclical adjustments. More skillfully handled by monetary policymakers,
We must implement this to
maintaining market
succeed.
confidence.
I agree with that.
Banks, unpressured by waves of withdrawals, would have continued to provide credit, stimulating investment. Nascent industries would have received capital, thus developing strongly and sustainably. Factories would have continued production, fields would have yielded abundant harvests, and people would have stable jobs. America, with its solid industry and abundant resources, would have solidified its position as an economic superpower. New inventions in electrification, automobiles, aviation, and communication would have been commercialized more quickly, creating millions of jobs and raising the living standards for all social classes. The middle class would have expanded, with
We can get the
increasing purchasing
blueberries.
power, boosting consumer demand and production. Cities would have continued to expand. Infrastructure would have received strong investment without the need for a New Deal. The government would have focused on prudent financial management and promoting international free trade. On the international stage, America's economic stability would have created a positive ripple effect. Europe, especially Germany, would not have faced the burden of war debts along with economic collapse. This would have significantly reduced public discontent, depriving extremist leaders of fertile ground. Promises of miraculous economic recovery and revenge for the past would no longer hold sway. Nascent democracies in Europe would have had the opportunity to solidify their institutions. Instead of being shaken by social chaos and economic pressure, economic protectionism would not have developed strongly, making way for cooperation. Instead, trade agreements would have been promoted, creating a global economic network. This interdependence, on one hand, would have helped prevent large-scale armed conflicts, as war would cause unacceptable economic damage to all parties. On the other hand, it would also have consolidated the power of developed industrial nations, especially the U.S., in shaping international norms and institutions fairly and effectively. Precursors to the United Nations might have emerged much earlier, with a stronger role in maintaining global peace and economic stability, instead of merely a weak league of nations, as in the original history. Following the initial decades of stability, the world would have witnessed a profoundly different international order. America, uninterrupted by recession, could have maximized its industrial and scientific potential. Investment in research and development would have been steadily maintained, leading to earlier technological breakthroughs. Nuclear energy for peaceful purposes, nascent information technology, and advanced medicine. Perhaps achievements like electronic computers or atomic energy would have appeared sooner, accelerating the pace of societal development, bringing a better life for everyone. Geopolitically, the absence of a large-scale World War II, as we know it, would have created a very different world map with new nations and relationships. The British and French empires might have maintained colonial power longer, more stably, or the decolonization process would have occurred more gradually and with less violence. Due to the absence of financial weakening and pressure from emerging superpowers. Independence movements in Asia and Africa might have had to wait longer or chosen negotiation. The confrontation between ideological blocs might have been much less intense. If authoritarian regimes in Europe and Asia had not risen so strongly or caused wars, Western powers would not have needed to ally with an opposing ideology. This could have reduced global polarization and avoided a prolonged Cold War. The arms race might have been less fierce, freeing up enormous resources. Freeing up enormous resources for sustainable economic and social development purposes. However, not everything would be rosy in this hypothetical world. A more economically stable world could also lead to conservatism in power structures, delaying necessary social and political reforms in certain regions. Issues such as wealth inequality, civil rights, or the environment. These issues might have taken much longer to be thoroughly addressed, due to the absence of major upheavals, forcing society to re-examine core values. America, with its undisputed economic superpower status in the world, could have become a more interventionist power in global affairs, shaping other nations according to its model more proactively. This could have led to new tensions unprecedented in human history. So we have journeyed through this hypothetical historical path, a more stable world. But would it truly be a better world? Or would new challenges arise from stability? Thank you for joining History's Forked Path. Please share your thoughts and propose other hypotheses.